saying the quiet part out loud. Listen, first and foremost, I do not want this video to come across as opportunistic or insensitive to the Filipino community. I was at that event earlier that day, long before that happened. Just people who lost their entire families that day, and this is not to capitalize on any of that, because that's awful, and I pray and you should be donating to every cause directly helps these people to deal with this tragedy. The mental health and health industry in BC has been a dumpster fire for the last 5 years. Every year, increasingly getting worse and worse and worse, with very little resources, and the resources that are provided by the government keep getting stolen by corruption and greed and ineffective treatments that have led to probably the worst mental health crisis in one city in Canadian history. I'm gonna run down some facts that you probably don't know if you don't live here. In BC alone, in the last 5 to 10 years, there have been over 20,000 deaths of overdoses and drug use. If you want to put that in perspective, the entire population of Canada fits in California. So 20,000 people over a 5-year span is a population of a small town here. And yet still, the idea to stop the drugs was to give safe drugs, which the government also revealed that they didn't track the safe drugs. So really, they just put drugs on the street, and the clean drugs just got resold. They would sell the dirty drugs, would get traded in for clean drugs, and the clean drugs would just go back to the mandem, and then the mandem would just chop up the cleanest shit they ever got, government supply, and put it back on the street. Everybody just kept buying dirty fent. All they did was give the biggest re-up in history. We had a mental health hospital, which you've probably heard of, and it is a massive property that they keep saying they're going to reopen every year and do nothing about. So all the people who need the mental health services in one of the biggest land properties that they could put people in don't have it. So what ends up happening is all the people with mental health issues end up going down to the east side to use drugs because they're not getting the help. On top of that, there is a massive nurse and doctor shortage since COVID. I wonder why. And now most of the health workers are so checked out or so emotionally and mentally beat down because they're getting attacked by mentally ill people almost every week that more and more people are refusing to go into that industry, which means more and more people are overworked, overtired, and constantly being abused. And now they don't have the empathy needed to deal with the people who need help. Listen, I've grown up here for most of my life, and the downtown east side was always bad. It was never this bad. Over the last 5 years, and anybody who's lived here long enough will tell you, it has never been this bad. It has never been this bad. Mental health was never this bad. It has gotten so bad that to the point that people are leaving, and a part of the reason why is because of how the laws are set up here to basically allow people with these kind of problems to just roam free. Now, I know the person who committed this horrible act had no record, and he had been trying to get treated, but as somebody who was a social worker for years, I can tell you how that works. Usually someone who requests mental health, right? They have a mental health call, the car will come, and unless they're causing physical violence to themselves, physical violence to someone else, it will mark it down. And then it's kind of it. They come when they're called, and half the time, because it's so bad all over the city, they're too busy to come. So a lot of people don't get checked unless they're like really, really, really dangerous to themselves or others. But most of the time, they can't do anything. You can't legally put someone in a mental health hold unless they're a kid. And once they're over that age, you can't force someone into treatment. So really, there's nothing they can do, right? People always complain, it's just like, why can't you hold people who have mental health issues? Because the way the laws are set up is like, these people have more rights than an average person without these problems. So if someone is having a mental health crisis, unless they sign away themselves into treatment, or they're court ordered which most of the time, they just keep walking around like nothing's a problem until they do something drastic that causes the police to show up. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but we need the cops to do their jobs again. The way the laws are set up right now is the cops can't arrest anybody who's publicly using, who's having mental health crises. All the hospitals have no spaces for them. The people who are like actively committing crimes over and over again are in this weird catch and release system where they get arrested and then they get released on bail the next day, because the whole idea is not to overcrowd the jails, but a lot of people are committing crimes just to have the place to sleep. So that means no one is actually getting arrested or being tried or even being assessed, which means a lot of people keep falling through the cracks of the system like daily, to the point where there's almost no I've talked to a cop when I was a social worker, and they said there's almost no point in arresting anybody anymore because they just get out the next day. That's the system that's here right now. And finally, we get to the corruption of it all. See, if you lived here long enough, you understand something. In most cities, there's a criminal underbelly, right? They have their thing, everybody else has theirs, right? The way that Vancouver was kind of set up the same way, except for a lot of how Vancouver was set up was off, obviously, the logging industry and refining, also the drug trade and prostitution and money laundering. And if you live here long enough, you know that. But what ends up happening is that now damn near every major industry in this city has a level of corruption in it. You don't have to believe me, but if you just do a Freedom of Information Act, you can check the numbers of any company you want. Everything's corruption, bro. Every single thing in this city is corruption. There's nothing on the up and up here, and that's been that way, I don't know, since the Olympics, pretty much. And so with that corruption comes greed. And what greed does is it prevents actual services needed to stop these kind of problems from happening, because there's no monetary incentive for people to actually do their thing. Like, in what Western country do you think the government getting involved in selling drugs sounds like not corruption to you? Don't worry, I'll wait. Like, a lot of the talking point right now is that you can't blame the city for what one lone deranged person did, but you can. It's done half measures or like workarounds or just downright stupid ideas that has caused this city to become so dangerous for people that every woman I know doesn't want to walk out on the street at night. They're constantly getting attacked. People are getting stabbed randomly. People are getting robbed randomly. Like, yeah, I know that could happen in any city, but here that wasn't a thing. And now it's so constant, people just accept it like it's a normal thing. So while the tragedy at Lapu Lapu Day is still heavy on the minds of the people, I want everybody to kind of take this in, that like this needs to be the breaking point where we demand change in this city, or else more and more of these things was going to happen. All of it's escalation, and if we don't say something now and we don't band together now to fight for some change to happen, then all that's going to happen is they're going to keep making excuses for why they can't make anything better and why they can't actually fix any of these problems that they had such an overwhelming hand at creating. And look, before you even try and say anything, this is not about a political side. This is about human connection and human people and people I'm talking to in the city that I live in or in the city that I'm from. I don't care where political leanings lie. This is just about us and trying to make our city a better place. I don't care what you believe in. You can wipe my ass with that. I don't care. This is about you and me and what we are clearly seeing every day and still doing nothing about. I don't care who you voted for, but I know you've lost somebody to suicide. You know somebody with mental health crises. I know you've lost somebody to drug overdoses. I know that since you've lived in this city, that you've seen so much pain just in the streets that it makes you sad every day. That is what I'm talking about. That kid who did that could have gotten the help, but because there's so much corruption, like, there is something clearly wrong here that we are not speaking up and demanding somebody to change. We can't wait for the government to investigate themselves to make sure that they can fix a problem that they are continuously fueling. This is about us trying to make our city a better place.